2, 1.
All right. Welcome to the second Fragments Silicon review for the week. Up this time is Mages of Mystralia. So, let me see. We actually did an interview about this game. I don't know, fair amount of time ago. Like, I think it was last season, like 6-9 months ago. I have to look up, but the point is, it was in development. Um, Fairly along the way, I think. I remember I remember not necessarily the developer, but the PR man mentioning that they wish they could have shown the game off, during that broadcast. But that was still when we were audio only. And it's also worth noting that the footage you're seeing on the video version of this podcast, it's going to be the trailer because mentioned in the other review, we only got one code for this. I mean, this. Anyway, Mages of Mystralia got released about 10 days ago, if I'm remembering correctly. Let's see. I got the PR here says it was released on May 18th on Steam. And coming soon to the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Right. As for what the game is, well, it's a third-person action game at its most basic level, and the gimmick selling point of this game is the spell casting. You can see in the trailer, they really put emphasis on the rune combinations and how you can, fashion these up to make all sorts of amazing spells. I've put in about 13 hours into the game, and how do I put this? I think they oversold the gimmick just a touch.
How so?
Mainly because the spell casting isn't as dynamic as you would think. Or rather, there's hardly a need to experiment with the spells I've found.
Once you find a couple of good ones that work.
I suppose it's more, I just kind of threw everything together, minus a few runes that's like random, or a directional rune that really only served I'm not sure what purpose random served. But like the directional runes served a very, very situational purpose. Like you needed to move your fireball to the left or to the right. It's also,
or like in the trailer, it was you need to move it around a circle.
yeah, stuff like that. Like you'll find the rune building to be very very situational. You need to get across a thing, or you need to solve this puzzle that needs this specific combination of runes, and they will tell you if the runes you need. And I suppose that's another problem with the spell system I found. The runes you have to acquire along the way, so you're really not going to open up the possibilities of what the system has to offer until mid to late game.
So is it kind of Metroidvania in that respect?
Kind of Zelda-ish, I'd say.
Ah,
Like, each major dungeon has a major rune that you need to collect. Like the dungeon I just did had the rune called Duplicates, in which you leave a body double, which is done for switch puzzles.
mm.
Mm-hmm.
But you will find many optional quote unquote runes scattered all over, like a rune called let's see, I think Overdrive was one of them uh, that makes your explosion spell much more powerful. Um, and the structure of the spell does matter because they have to be junction to each other. But I didn't find too much of a problem, and I did just find the ether rune, which allows for a whole bunch more junctioning. Though you do have to keep in mind on what you junction. Um, because uh, the amount of power a spell uses will correlates to your magic meter.
Oh, so you
Like,
can't like just slap everything together and just go firing off like a madman.
well, you can do that, but you have to be prepared for some drawbacks.
Mm.
Because, not only do I have that going, but I've managed to connect all. Um, so at the base, there are four major spells. Um, there's your explosion. There's your melee attack, basically. There's your fireball spell, which at the beginning is like almost literally useless because you can't. It just floats in the air. Like the fireball spell doesn't really operate well until you get the move rune, in which it turns into a proper fireball spell.
Mm-hmm. Otherwise,
Ditto.
it's just kind of a fireball that sits there.
Yes, literally sits there. It's good for some puzzle solving, and that's about it. Now, the Sero spell is your ice spell. Um, you're like that's most helpful in making passages over water. Once
I'm
again, that's another spell that really gets going once you add the move rune, because instead of like one ice sheet, you get multiple ice sheets.
I'm guessing
Uh,
our little mage friend can't swim.
no, Zia cannot swim. Uh, and the ego spell, which in its base form is actually a shield.
Hmm.
Like like I'd say the ego spell is the only one I'd recommend having just a baseline laying around, because you can create a whole bunch of copies of these spells and experiment. And the ego spell is worth keeping around because um, like when you attach the move rune to that, it becomes your dash,
Mm.
but you don't have the shield anymore. Now, it's really the only spell that I can think of that where the baseline remains useful. Everything else is just like, why would you, once you get some upgrades, you would never use the base.
And like, how do you equip the spells once you have them?
Um, well, no, you don't equip the spells; they're always there.
Okay,
Like,
then how do you use them once you have them?
button presses. I mean, they're correlated to four buttons. Let's see, the X, Y, B, and for some reason the right trigger. Like, right
I'm
trigger
guessing
is
that's your block.
the right trigger. Yeah, that's the block slash dash slash whatever you junction to. That's your ego spell.
Mm.
Yeah,
So you just like push buttons in sequence to combine things?
yeah. Well, what I'm getting at there is, this is a game that actually uses the face buttons for its major things for the most part.
Okay,
They
well, I'll
don't.
tell you the reason why I ask is because this reminded me of an old DS game called Lost Magic, where you combined different runes to make spells and stuff. And in
Yeah,
that one, every time you use them, you have to draw out the runes separately. Although in this case, I guess the runes are not drawn; they're just you have them.
Yeah. Anyway.
No, I was just curious as to how it worked.
There you go. But you always have access to your 4 basic spells, and what you end up equipping are the runes. They're the various augments.
Okay.
And you get those for rewards from like dungeons and stuff, as opposed to like a hook shot or a shield or something like that.
Yes, although you can also upgrade your rod. It's like like the rod upgrades I've gotten so far. Upgrade your fire spells, upgrade your ice spells, your earth spells, wind spells. I think. Yeah. Like like I said, there's a lot of potential in the rune system. It's just first of all, it takes way too long to open up, I think, into something actually worthwhile, into experimenting. And more to the point, the gameplay doesn't really require you to experiment if you don't want to. At least this is my estimation. But getting back to what I was saying about powerful spells, because I have all my spells connected, basically, they all go off at once, and that can drain your magic meter pretty quickly. Now, your magic meter will regenerate, but after not too long. But it is something to keep in mind. Let's see. In terms of the gameplay itself, it's like I'd say this is Zelda-esque, oddly enough. Even though, like, in terms of design, combat is definitely, I don't know. I'm like trying to think here. Like
Magica?
I guess, like, definitely reminds me of something, but I can't place it. Like, it's definitely not Zelda combat, though. This is more, you go to dungeons, you deal with puzzles. Instead of based on items, it's based on your magic and your magic runes. And there are secrets that are unlocked via your powers. That's where it's Zelda-esque in its design. Its combat, I don't want to say hack and slash either, because it's not that. Like, I'm like, sorry, I have a failed analogy on my hands. Anyway, we're like, one of the most striking aspects of mages is the graphics. I mean, if you can see the trailers and the screenshots, the game looks very impressive. Also worth noting, this is a game built in Unity. So you might have some performance issues here. Right. It handled flawlessly on my current laptop. I'm willing to bet that my older laptop, this would have given some problems, because the visual fit. Oh, well, actually, no, this game was giving my laptop some slowdown stuff when it had all the settings on. I'll tone that down a bit.
But it is tone downable.
Huh. Yes, yes, it is. It's a PC game, so.
Well, some Unity games, they don't put in the graphics adjustment settings.
Oh, there, there's a non-surprise. Apparently, Naka's got this on his wish list. Like, turns out moving your profile to private doesn't hide that aspect. Like 7 friends want the game. But yeah, not surprising that Naka would want this because
Tiny Witch.
yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm like the character's very much up Naka's alley. Um, not not so much a witch. They don't call her a witch. All um, the two major magic factions are magicians and necromancers.
And I'm
Like,
guessing you're the former?
yeah, you are the yeah, you are a apprentice magician who discovered her powers by making her cottage burn down.
That's one way to do it.
You know, and it's also a period of persecution against magicians. Um, I'm not exactly sure the reasons. I haven't gotten that far. Like the game, the game is estimated to take you about 10 hours if you go straight through it. I've been finding the secrets, so that of course takes more time. I'm about halfway through the game. I'm like, and it's worth noting you will be doing a fair amount of backtracking because um, call it Zelda, call it Metroidvania, whatever style of design you want to. There's a lot of you're not going to be able to get to these chests um, or deal with this puzzle until you get powers later on. Um, so, thankfully, there is a fast travel system, but honestly, there more teleport nodes were needed. Like, um, I think no, overdrive was one of the required ones because that's how you destroy rocks.
Hmm.
Like, the music. So worth noting, like, some real talent behind the music. Um, original orchestral. Um, Let me try that again. Original orchestral score conducted by Shinota Nakama uh, and performed by the video game orchestra at the Soundrec Boston of Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts fame.
Oh.
I'm like, that's quite the pedigree. That being said, I didn't find the music all that remarkable. Like, it's fitting ambient stuff.
But it's
But it's
nothing
like,
you'd want to, put on your epic get shut done playlist.
it's more, I'm having trouble remembering most of the music.
Mm.
Like, it was nice, but it's not standing out all that much, which is kind of interesting, actually.
And does this have an available soundtrack for purchase?
Yes, it does. Um, in the Mages of Mystralia soundtrack edition,
Mm.
that's about $5 more than the typical. Little less, you get 15. Um, and honestly, if you're buying the package, I'd recommend that because the Mages of Mystralia original soundtrack can be purchased separately on Steam for $10. Let's see. How many tracks do you? I'm trying. Let me see. Does this tell me how many tracks? Here we go. 50 tracks.
That's not bad.
Yeah, like yeah. Available in FLAC and MP3 formats. Like, it's just yeah. This is kind of typical modern day video game orchestra music, which honestly I have a problem with in general. In its, I mean, like, not so much. I guess there's no other way to put it. Blandness. I'm not saying the soundtrack was horrible or anything, but it's not really something I noticed most of the time. You know,
Yeah, they don't
if
have
it's a
like
situation,
something epic sweeping
yeah,
score like an RPG would.
yeah, it did all the usual, um, yeah, video game epic RPG stuff. But I mean, if I'm being honest, I think Ruin of the Reckless soundtrack was much more interesting and dynamic and adrenaline pumping. Yeah, I think I like that soundtrack better. But this is a subjective thing. Now, let's see. What else have I not talked about? If anything, like
So your magic power, do you have to? Does that refill over time, or do you have to like have potions on you or whatever?
it refills over time, and you can use magic charms. But the thing about magic charms is they're rare. You actually have to do a side quest to get a magic charm. You have to get a magical lily. You have to plant it in the garden, and then you have to spend 20 orbs. That's the game currency. Um, to grow one of these magic charms. So it's one like I will say I don't like how they handled the magic charms dealy at all, because maybe there's a place to purchase those, without having to go through a side quest, but I never found it. And so that makes your magic refill charms really really rare and precious. So you're probably not going to use them unless you're like fighting a boss or something.
Insert joke about elixirs of Final Fantasy where you have a whole page of them.
Yeah. Like, so I suppose it's time to talk about one of the perhaps big sticking points of the game. The game, and that's the price. It's $24.99. This game is going for $25, vanilla edition, and about $30, the soundtrack edition. I'm like, so yeah, we are way past an impulse purchase here. Like,
which is why I didn't play it to try it out.
Yeah, it definitely has the content to back it up, but I'm like, you might not like the length, considering how short it is. All things considered, like even with exploration, I wouldn't say this. I'd say you get at most about, if I'm being very generous, 20 hours. Like, uh, and I guess it depends on how much you want to experiment with the spellcasting stuff. Now, but yeah, it's not a game I can recommend at that price level, sight unseen. I think, I'll be honest, I think this game needs a demo, and I don't know if one's forthcoming, but, $25, $30 for an indie game, that's, you know, that's a bit above the usual asking price. So,
Especially from a relatively unknown indie dev. Like if
yes.
it was something from like Team Meat or other big indie devs, maybe.
Yeah, or if it was a like literally big game like the Starpoint Gemini games that we did an interview about not too long ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, something like this. Um, yeah, I'm gonna have to say you kind of have to wanna buy this game before you should buy this game, or maybe wait a year down the line when it when you might get it on sale for about $15.
Yeah, well, there also is a Steam Summer Sale coming soon at time of recording, so it might be in that.
I would expect if there is a sale of that,
It would be in the winter.
Yeah, because this might be a game that doesn't come down in price very quickly.
Oh yeah, because it just released like 10 days ago.
Yeah, so that's the biggest thing for me. The price is the biggest sticking point in terms of recommending a full purchase. In terms of its gameplay, design, and all that stuff, definitely. But
if this was like $15, then this would be a different story.
I'd say even $20, but I'm like, I'm going $25, $30 for this game. I don't think it has. And it's mainly I don't think it has the length enough to justify that. So like I said, evaluations can be very hard sometimes because, like I said, this is a damn solid game. With tremendous production values. And it's got a really interesting gimmick that I do think is held back by its progression system a bit, more than anything else. But it's the price that ultimately, like, if there was a option to rent, I'd say go for that. But there isn't, so wait for a sale. Because if you don't, I suppose if you don't like it, you can use the refund system.
We do not advocate abusing the refund system here, though.
Basically. So, ultimately, I guess 7.5 out of 10 in terms of rating. If I have to attach a number, solid enough, but not quite there to recommend at full price. Right, so that'll about do it for the Fragments of Silicon reviews for the week. Right. Petty Fan, be sure to have the MSP stuff ready. I imagine it's not in front of you, so I'll go through the week ahead.
All right, yeah, I should have it. I hope, unless Max changed it on me, then don't shoot me.
Anyway, so coming up, we do have a Tuesday interview. Tuesday morning, we'll be interviewing Dan Sheridan of End Dreams VR. I think this is going to be our first dedicated VR studio. Like, we've had people who work in VR, but, well, VR is literally in their name. Although, given that in mind, they're working on a kind of a curious project for VR because it's a 2D brawler called Bloody Zombies. And yes, that is a pun because they are British.
Because of course.
Yeah. But like I said, it's a 2D brawler that's being developed for all the major VR headsets. Your Oculus Rift, your HTC Vive, and the PlayStation VR headset. I'm curious to see how this is going to work, given at least what I've seen in terms of footage. Like, because when you think of genres, well, 2D anything doesn't really come to mind when it comes to VR. So I'm interested to see how this is going to pan out here.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, on May 31st, our main show, we will have Joe Tringali of Digital Continue. I think I meant. They are working on a conversion of a game called Lock's Quest. 2008 DS game. It's an SRPG, and once again, I'm going to be interested to see how they're going to handle that conversion because, well, I suppose it's not the most difficult, say, DS game to translate to other consoles,
Mm-hmm.
but it did use both screens. You know, though it's not like, say, The World Ends With You, where, yeah, that game really, really didn't work outside of the DS. Looking at you, iOS port. I mean, no, seriously, the iOS version of The World Ends With You had to be revamped so much they called it Solo Mix. But that's a discussion for another day. And we do have 2 reviews coming up this Sunday, next week. Hang on. Let's see. First up will be Stick It to the Man, the puzzle platformer done by the Has Been Heroes developer. If you'll recall, we interviewed them Zoink Games, not too long ago. And in fact, they gave us, I think they gave us these codes about a month ago, maybe a little more. The reason why this game has gotten delayed so long is, well, because it's like from 2014, I think. It's a couple years old at this point, so there's been no hurry in getting to it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
There has been hurry on other games here that have literally just come out.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, everyone got a code here. So, speaking of games that are just coming out, our other game is actually going to be a multiplayer affair. X-Field Paintball 3. I think the game, the game still hasn't launched yet. I believe it's launching on Tuesday. So, and they told me that the multiplayer stuff wasn't going to be fully functioning until launch. So
That could be interesting. Okay.
So yeah, we're probably going to have a Friday affair on this one because you know, we kind of do need to test out the multiplayer capabilities of this game.
Mm-hmm.
So, with all that in mind, what's happening on MSP this week?
MSP, we have, and I'm sorry I mispronounced his last name, Jackie Woolenhouse of Between Two Failures.
Oh yeah. I remember this now. Really big comic. Apparently it's got 1,700 pages.
Jesus.
Yeah, I'm like, even when I was dedicated to researching MSP guests, that's something I don't think I would have been able to get through. I'm like, these days? No. I have games to play. I have my own guests to research. I think Mac's gonna have to lead on that one.
Yeah.
Unless he finds it, kind of a pseudo entry point, because nobody here is gonna fucking read 1,700 pages.
Yeah, I mean, unless we were told 2 months ago. We could do it at our own pace, but...
Yeah, I'm like, no. This requires, either dedication or familiarity. So, readings the past few months, sure. A gigantic archive? not so much. Anyway, so that's what's happening in the media empire this week. We hope you'll be able to join us for all of it. And until Tuesday, I wish you good gaming.